do you spell power? How do you spell power? Well, Napoleon Hill tells us that power is created when you translate action and plans together. This is a way to form a mastermind group. Hi, good morning. My name is Ann McNeil, and I am excited today, but then I'm excited every day because we have a very special mastermind group for you today that's going to share really, I think, the good, the bad, and the ugly of masterminding, but also the power of I call it Misty and Frank mastermind group, the powerful duo of two. As a part of the International Mastermind Association, we walk through the book Think and Grow Rich every single week. Yes, 52 weeks in the year. And we bring to you individuals who are living in these principles, these 13 principles, as Napoleon Hill shares, which you'll hear a little bit more about that. But one of the most powerful principles, I think, is the power of the mastermind. Because only iron can sharpen iron, iron cannot sharpen paper. And when you think about the fact that you can be held accountable with like-minded and like-spirited individuals for literally every single area of your life. But for this podcast, we're talking about your business and your money. We're also talking about the fact that your business is not your life, and your life can be your business when you're masterminding with like-minded and like-spirited individuals. So, as always, I could host this by myself, but not today. So help me welcome to our podcast for Think and Grow Rich Mastermind. Yes, Dr. Peter James and also Galen Bingham. How are both of you doing today? We have a full house, so we'll go with you first, Peter, and then Galen.
Not only a full house, but two guests today there, Ann McNeil. Very excited to dive on in. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Peter James. I'm excited to be back with you all as we dive into another principle of this phenomenal book by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And of course, today, Ann, I'm very excited about this one because we're diving into a concept that escapes many people. And here's what I mean. So many of us think, I gotta hustle, I gotta grind by myself. But we don't realize that we need other people to succeed. Not only other people, we need accountability and responsibility. And sometimes as adults, that word accountability rubs us the wrong way. You mentioned it already. And whether it's the power that comes about from this collective or the accountability or the phenomenal success. Today, we're going to unpack what that looks like for us, but also two phenomenal guests who have figured out how to do it together. So this is going to be great, Ann. Looking forward to it.
All right, thank you. And of course, Galen Bingham. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. It's great to be back. I missed hanging out with you guys last week, but this is going to be an incredible conversation. Not only because of the topic, because I've had some experience with masterminding, both with the three of us as well as with Dr. Peter and a couple of other situations, but this particular mastermind with Misty and Frank, I have personally experienced both of them individually, and I would say individually they are both amazing. They're masters at the thing that they do individually. I've also experienced them together as a mastermind, and it's always amazing and fascinating to me how 1 + 1 = more than two. And that's what we're going to be talking about. How do you, as Napoleon Hill talks about, he says it's a friendly alliance of one or more persons who will encourage one to follow through on both plan and purpose. And the power of the mastermind is how do you magnify the efforts of of each of the individuals into something greater when you come together. So I can't wait to get into this conversation. It's absolutely gonna bless whoever is listening or watching this.
Well, this is one of the reasons why we want to encourage everybody. We're going to take a short break shortly, but in the meantime, please comment, like, and share this podcast, but also subscribe to the YouTube. But right now, it gives me great honor to introduce a friend, and I would say reintroduce to some of you. And I'll start with Misty Campbell first. And I could say so many wonderful things about Misty, but first I'm going to say that is a mother of actually two wonderful children that are part of Mastermind. We meet on Sundays. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Misty is an advocate for caregivers, and she has over 20 years of experience in this area. Published a book. She's going to talk about her book because, that experience is life altering for so many. She knows firsthand about the struggles and caregiving. And she has become, I think, one of the number one advocates that I know in this area because she didn't just live it. She's doing something about it in a masterful way. So good morning. Come on to the podcast. Misty Campbell, how are you this morning?
Good morning. Hey, if I was any better, I'd be you.
And I wonder where you get that from.
Oh, a wise woman.
Yes. Well, Misty, we have known each other for a very long time. And as a part of this experience as we mastermind, you have blessed us with two wonderful children that mastermind with us on a regular basis. And so we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but I think you have a partner that you met as a part of this mastermind process that we've created. And that's none other than Mr. Frank Kitchen. Good morning, Frank. How are you this morning? Let's talk a little bit about Frank. Frank is the founder of Frank Kitchen Enterprises, and he is a seasoned fundraiser, coach, and keynote speaker with over 25 years of experience. And through his dynamic keynote speeches, educational workshops, and training programs, he empowers leaders globally to become a positive difference maker and life changers. Good morning, Frank. How are you also this morning?
Yeah, I'm doing amazing. I have to intro Miss Ann. So I have to hire you to come do that for me when I go on the road. I'm loving it.
I'm not through because I do want to save just a little bit for those people that have not come on yet. Because, as always, when we host these kinds of podcasts, there are people who are just starting to listen. And then those are people who will listen a little later and live. So we will continue with that. But it's an honor really to have both of you on. We've had each of you individually, but I would like to start off by asking either of you to share with our audience, how did you meet? Where did you meet? Can you just, one of you, either one, share?
Yes. So we met in 2020. We were both participating in the Black National Speakers Association's Mastermind, and we were in a small group, and it was asked who wants to be Misty's accountability partner. And after a little awkward silence, Frank Kitchen said, I will. And we've been accountability partners ever since.
Frank?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. That's how it happened. We had our breakout group here at the Black NSA $1 Million Mastermind, and it's hard to describe, but there were several high-level speakers in our mastermind group. And I know Misty and I talked behind the scenes, and we're looking around, and we knew the people, but some of the numbers they were throwing out were bigger than numbers we were thinking about. So we were both kind of getting into that speaking industry. So like, okay, who do we connect with? So seeing that she was a mother and that she was starting out, but I just saw her drive, like, because man, she would show up to these masterminds, taking her kids to school or to appointments. And I'm like, okay, she's got to drive. So I'm like, I want to go connect with her because she most resonated and related to me. So that's the person I jumped out for because I'm like, I saw this go-getter attitude. So I'm like, I need some of that.
Exactly.
And yes, and I think the two of you also have something else in common with the children.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we both have a daughter and a son, of which our sons seem kind of like they might have been like, just split from the same rock. So it's like the girls are the go-getters and like, not saying that the boys aren't the smart ones, but the girls are the go-getters and like, the perfectionists and, want to go, and then the boys are just kind of like they want to go do their own thing. So when we've talked, we found out like even, they've got that connection. So the more we've gotten a chance to know each other, personally and professionally, we realize how many connections that we have.
Now, the reason I asked that question is because oftentimes when we consider creating a mastermind group, and I talk about this in my book, How to Start and Run a Successful Mastermind Group and a Profitable Group, we don't think about the fact that the people you invite should be like-minded and like-spirited. But I'm going to put a pin in that for a second. We're going to go to Galen and ask him to set up the 13 steps. And then we're going to come back and get into, I like to call it the good, the bad, and the ugly of masterminding, whether it is your own or others, because I really want our listeners to understand it's not always rosy, if you will, when you're talking about being held accountable. So Galen?
Yeah, yeah. I think that this video does a really, really critical job in explaining how all these principles work together. It's one thing to say, hey, find someone and say, hey, we're going to meet and talk about business, and you can do that. And there are a lot of organizations and groups that you can go to and you can pay to be a part of, and they're going to talk about your business. But it's another thing to be a part of a group where you are employing all of these principles. So as you listen to this video and watch this video, think about how these connect together, and for the groups that you're a part of, how you might be missing one or two of them, and how you might benefit from actually leveraging the principles that created the entire mastermind process. So take a listen to this.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically. But we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination. The workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
And there you have it, all 13 principles. And before I kick this back over to Ann to get into this conversation, I just want to acknowledge the folks who are, I just want to acknowledge the folks who are watching us live on YouTube. So Doretha, always here, Carla Hill, Laura Jackson, Wyman Winbush, the Wisdom Broker, Anki Arnold, Shannon Charlton, V. Lynn Whitfield. Oh my gosh. So this obviously our guests bring out the heavy hitters to watch. So Go Craft Crazy is watching us. If you are watching us, please make sure you hit that thumbs up icon underneath the video so that YouTube knows that there's something else going on other than what's happening to P. Diddy. So hit that thumbs up icon, and we're going to get into this conversation. Ann, back to you.
Yes, I want to go back to Misty and Frank. I'm sorry, I have static, so I'm not sure if it was on my side. So anyway, I want to go back to Misty and Frank and ask the question of this book. What was the first introduction to this book for each of you? And I'll start with you first, Misty, and then with Frank.
My first introduction was my first mastermind, which was September of 2018 in Black NSA. That was my first introduction to it.
And Frank?
Yeah, mine was September 2019 with the Black NSA Mastermind. Mike, I'd heard about the book, but as far as the exposure and actually reading it and learning how to read the book, that was with you, Miss Ann.
Oh, I like that. How to read the book. Can you talk a little bit more about learning how to read the book? That's different.
Well, I mean, there's one thing with books, like they'll say, hey, go read this book. And people will either flip through the book or listen to it. But you explain, one is like how to notate in the book as you're reading it. So it's like, hey, if there's an idea, we need to either write or journal off to the side. So I always hear Misty talk about, hey, you know what, Miss Ann told me, it's like, I got my journal, Frank, I'm journaling this morning. But one was to journal, but then when we met with our mastermind groups was to have a deeper discussion on how that chapter or that section resonated with us and how we're applying it to our life. So reading, it's almost like people when they talk about we hear and we listen. Hear is not active. Where listening is an active piece to really understand, to digest, to consume, and then to go out and replicate. So when I say about reading the book, it's a piece of don't just read it to get to the end. It's a piece of really understanding what is being taught and then reflecting on how you're going to apply it to your life.
Wow. I think that it's important for us also to when we read the book, allow it to read you. And that's what resonated with me when you said that about read the book, and then Misty talking about the actual journaling of the book. And I think also this might be some of the reasons why many of us continue to come back again and again and again. And I'll pass it over to Dr. Peter James, because I know he has questions.
Yeah, and thank you so much there, Ann, and loving this mastermind philosophy. And I'm hoping that the audience can get a little bit of a clarity around how and why it's so important to dive on into this process. So, Frank and Misty, I would love to hear a little bit about what it looks like on the average. You're meeting, and you're diving in. What does accountability look like? And then how does it feel? So let's start with you there, Misty. I would love to hear from your perspective, if you don't mind. What does accountability look like, especially when you're meeting with Frank? And then how does it feel, if you could?
Thank you so much, Peter. Frank and I are currently working on a project. Maybe about a year or two ago, we said, because people kept admiring our accountability partnership. And so we were like, yeah, we're going to train, coach, teach people how to find a great accountability partner. And I said, Frank, that's not it. We're going to focus on how to be a great accountability partner, because I've had partners in the past, but Frank and I, we meet every Friday. We've been meeting every Friday for almost 5 years now. And, it's one thing to say, yeah, we're going to meet, blah, 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 but it's another thing to show up. And so we started to show up every Friday, and we started off with small goals and professional goals, which in turn sometimes turned into personal goals, because as Frank alluded to, we both have families. And so sometimes, yeah, it's about, okay, what is my stretch goal? What is my vomit goal? How much am I trying to make this year? But it's also, okay, I want to make sure my kids thrive and get their homework done and become the best in their sports. So in that realm, we meet every Friday. And when you talk about how does it feel, it feels great. And what people don't know, if you and your accountability partner or team, if you're on it, if you meet every week and say for some reason 1 week you can't meet, I mean, you're like dying inside. You're like, oh my God, I need my accountability partner to show up here for me and make me accountable. So we meet every Friday, and it feels great because we all need to be held accountable within our goals. And Frank and I, and I'll speak on this a little later, but Frank and I, we've reached so many milestones in our life that it makes it easier for us to decide future goals that we want to make. So it feels great. It feels good. And have we had to say a few words that, well, more so me, not Frank. Have I had to say a few words that weren't so nice? Yes, because as I told Frank yesterday, he was a little late getting onto our call. And so I'm like, Frank, you can't be late. Like, I need my Frank Kitchen, as my daughter calls it, Frank Fridays. But we've definitely both elevated our businesses and our incomes being partners.
Mhm.
Frank?
Oh, okay. Thank you. So she passed it back on to me. I mean, we got to get honest here today. And people, like even my wife was going, it's like, well, hey, you and Misty, when you talk, you probably just talk about good stuff all the time. And I go, no, it's like, I was like, we push each other, we challenge each other. I'm like, my family's from the South, so everybody will understand this one. I mean, we give each other sugar, honey, iced tea. I mean, it's that point where, I mean, if you have a really good accountability partner, you got to be ready to, when I say get beat up, is the case is there's points where we'll throw punches at each other, and it's not punches in a sense of trying to hurt each other, but imagine going to a gym and having a trainer and someone's telling you, hey, you know what? I know you can push harder, you can hit harder. You got to have that person. So I like to call Misty my taste tester. And in a sense of, if you've got a taste tester in your life and you're trying to cook a meal, the taste tester is the person you explain exactly what you want. And the taste tester now understands the result that you want to cook up. And they're not going to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to tell you what you need to hear to achieve what you want. And you may not like what you're hearing, but you understand because they care about you and you've asked them to be that taste tester. You're willing to, one is ask for the feedback, but you're willing to take it in. So that's the way our relationship works out, either on the personal side or the professional side. There's days we show up and we understand that we've got to push that person because we may be in one of those seasons in our life where we don't necessarily understand or believe in ourselves. And if you've got a really good relationship, they can go through that Rolodex and start pulling out, well, remember when you did this? I've seen you do this. Do it again.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Amen.
Galen, sounds very familiar, sir.
It does. It does. I certainly don't necessarily enjoy all the conversations you and I have during our accountability meetings. I'm curious, Frank, Misty, I would love for you to share something that the other person has done that actually called you higher, right? Is there something specifically that you can think that you're doing now, that you have now, that you've accomplished, that if left to your own devices, you might not have gone that far. You might not have gone to that level, but because of your accountability partner, they called you higher. They pulled you into this space that you're now enjoying. Does that exist?
Yes. Frank, you want to go first?
No, I want to say ladies first. I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay. Well, this is not speaker related, but recently, say over the last year, I put my home up for sale. But the year I put my home up for sale, I didn't make it homely, right? So I put it on the market. I didn't paint it. I didn't do any updates. I didn't do anything. And at the time, Frank was looking to purchase a home. And so, Frank would speak about the homes he was looking for. And so when I put it on the market, it didn't move. And Frank's like, Misty, now, and I am a broker. She's like, Misty, you've been a lazy broker. And I was lazy broker and lazy seller. And so I went back, took it off the market, did the updates, did the painting, did the power washing, did some cosmetic things. And when I tell you that house sold for 6 figures, I was ecstatic. And so Frank just kind of pushed me to say, okay, wait a minute. Take it off the market. Let's go back to the drawing board. And so when I came back on, I was priced to sell. All you had to, it was just had to find the right buyer at the time. So thank you, Frank, for that, because Galen, Frank put me in that mindset of let's just take a step back so that we can reach the goal. And I did reach the goal.
Fantastic. Frank, what about you?
Well, I'm like, if people don't know Misty who are listening and watching, Misty is a planner, a organizer, and we had the Black NSA celebration in Orlando, and I got voluntold to be with Misty to help her plan the event, because we said, hey, we're accountability partners. Whatever you get involved in, I'll be involved in too. So when Misty was voluntold by Miss Ann to kind of take charge of that event, she's like, hey, Frank, you're with me. I was like, I don't have a choice. So as we were working and planning the event, Misty understood that I was in a point of my business and life where I needed to really work on my marketing. And she goes, hey, Frank, I'm going to arrange for a photo shoot, because if we're going to be dressed up and on stage, she's like, let's take this, go full out. And she's like, you can use these pictures for yourself. And for everybody, it might sound small, but we are in a perception business of speakers. So Misty arranged for the photo shoot. She got herself all, done up, got the hair done, brought in like her own stylist. And then we did this photo shoot around the hotel. And now many of those photos that we took, I'm using for my event marketing. And it's funny, it's not a case where it's just something that Misty liked or I liked. When you go to my website, it's like, okay, here's different headshots. And clients are taking not just any picture, but the pictures that Misty had set up. So, I mean, that's a piece that happens there where you talk about the power of the mastermind. You have a person with your group who sees things that you may not see that are going to help you out. So Misty's got like that creative and, like I said, marketing event planner eye. And she's like, hey, here's what we're going to go do. And when she says, here's what we're going to go do, there are no other options, but there's no other options in a good way.
I love it. A couple of things I really like about what you guys have shared. Number one, there is oftentimes we'll come together for a business reason, but once you're in a mastermind long enough, it becomes personal. And you really do start looking into what's the best for that person relative to what they're trying to accomplish. And then the other thing that I want to highlight, Peter, and did you hear how Frank just slipped in, how Misty brought in her own personal stylist? Her own personal stylist. I heard that. I caught that.
Right. But the thing was, she brought in her own personal stylist, but she didn't do it just for herself. She actually told people there's like, hey, and she didn't go, my stylist, but she goes, hey, my stylist is here doing hair and makeup if you'd like it too. So she also brought people along. So she's not this person where it's just for her, she offered her hand to other people. Some people took her up on it, some people didn't. And I think that's the one thing too, people don't understand, where Misty is a giver. And we're in this world, like you were saying, we're going to go deeper into masterminds where we get around too many people who are takers. So I know there's certain points where Misty will offer things to people and they kind of stand back for a second because they don't know how to take it, because we're in this world where people are just take, or there's some underlying thing going there. And she's just being genuine, going, well, hey, guess what? I want people to shine and be at their best too. So I'm going to make the offer. So she's always going to make the offer out there, but there's people where that's more the internal thing. They don't know necessarily how to take it because they haven't seen it. And as you said, when you get a part of these masterminds, you recognize there are a lot of people out there who value your success just as much as theirs. That's the big, I'm going to pick on Dr. Peter here. That's the big mindset shift is, had a friend years ago, he said, Frank, yeah, there's a lot of bad in the world, but he's like, there's more good than bad. We just have to make time to show it and share it.
Fantastic, fantastic. Ms. Hand, back to you, or Dr. Peter. Saw you come off mute there.
I've been asking a ton of questions already, but but I got to say this too. I felt the pain there, Galen, from Frank and Misty, because in our mastermind, I feel that pain also when you are sometimes asked those questions that are uncomfortable and you don't have a direct answer for, but it's challenging you to higher heights. And that's what I love about this collaboration and what I'm hearing from Frank and Misty there. And I know you know this so well. We're preaching to the choir with you, of course.
Listen, I don't think you understand that sitting here listening to all of you just, it gives my heart great joy. I want to share something that Lynn Whitfield said in the chat. She said, and as she's listening, she says, I've not been able to find a good accountability partner. Now the shoe drops. Like that. Maybe I need to learn how to be a good accountability partner. And that is so powerful for all of us. And I think that both Misty and Frank and Galen and Peter are excellent examples of how we become that which we are desiring in others. But it's a lot of work, and we must be willing to do the work. And before this podcast started, I shared that, Black NSA through the National Speakers Association, I cannot say enough. And if you're listening to this podcast and you're looking for a group of like-minded and like-spirited individuals, connect with us at the National Speakers Association. There's so many different mastermind groups inside of it, but the Black NSA $1 Million Mastermind that we have been a part of now, I've hosted, gosh, I'm almost 15 years, starting from the beta test we did. But inside of it, and I would challenge you, Lynn, and everybody else who's listening that's looking, you still have time to register. And Peter's going to put the link in the chat on YouTube. But you can just go to blacknsaspeaker.org. Anybody listening to this at any point in the future, you can go to blacknsaspeaker.org, because we will continue to host this, yes, twice a year, once in the spring and fall. This is where Misty and Frank met. Now, what I'd like to do is turn the conversation, talk a little bit about, oh, here we go. Thank you so very much. This is the website. You can.
Ms. Ann, can I jump in for a second?
Absolutely, please.
Yeah, I also want to share with people who are listening and watching, because a lot of people may be, they're seeing our faces right now and they're hearing Black NSA Mastermind, and they may think it's not for them. And the big piece is, like with my wife, she comes from a Hispanic background. And when she heard me Black NSA Mastermind, she popped in one day and she saw people from around the world. She saw different races, ethnicities. And she's like, wow, there's a lot of diversity in this mastermind. She's like, I wasn't expecting that. So, I mean, that's the other piece is, as you're offering an invitation is, we got people in there who are even speakers. They're business owners or consultants, or they're thinking about getting to speaking. So I just want to share that with everybody, going like, it's open for everybody. And we've watched people come in there who've decided, hey, maybe I should go be a speaker, or other people just see their business in a different light. But as you said, it's like-minded people, not necessarily like-looking people.
Thank you so much for that, because you're absolutely right. And actually, at one point, half of the group were not Black inside of the NSA $1 Million Mastermind. And I do want to continue to share that when you're looking for iron sharpening iron, going to what V. Lynn Whitfield shared, and it's not so much about finding as much as it is about becoming. So let me start with you, Frank. Can you share with us one of the most challenging areas of growth as a mastermind that you are either experiencing or have had to experience as a part of this process?
Yeah, I'm going to shift, back to what you just said about being that, accountability partner. The mastermind is about giving, and it's not about taking. And too many people come into masterminds that I've seen where they're looking, it's like, well, I didn't get anything around it. It didn't change my business. They didn't teach me what to go and do. And they're coming to it from the wrong perspective. Where I know for me and Misty, the piece is it's almost a point like you feel like you're letting the other person down if you don't show up for them, or you don't bring ideas, or like she says yesterday, like, when I was late, I was already going, I was like, hey, I was like, go ahead and give it to me. It's like, I'm sorry for being late. And like, we, for about four or 5 minutes, we go back and forth. And like I said, we just give each other a hard time. But because we understand we got family and lives, and there could be doctor's appointments or kids are sick, it's there. But as I said, it's not, oh my God, I got to get there and have her teach me. It's the case, man, I promised her that I would be there. So that's the big piece where I think any mastermind is you're going in thinking like, okay, what can I share? What is my passion, my knowledge, my experience? How am I going to give that to somebody else to make them better? Versus you're coming in saying, I'm just going to wait for some people to give me stuff to make my business, my life better.
Oh, I love that. That's powerful, powerful. Misty?
For me, one of the challenging things was not to compare myself with other mastermind members. We're all on different journeys. We're all trying to get somewhere. But I remember when my first mastermind, now my personal goal was 300,000. And what I loved about it was nobody said, oh, that's a crazy goal. It was, I think Galen was in my group. It was, how are you going to get there? And so if you compare yourself to other people now in the Black NSA Mastermind, there's a range. There may be somebody with a goal of $500. There may be somebody with a goal of 500,000 in 10 weeks. And you say, well, how are they going to make 500,000 in 10 weeks? Well, we work backwards. And once you learn the principles of it, then you can say, okay, you know what? One of my favorite ones is persistence. Well, you know what? I'm not going to compare myself. What I'm going to do is stay persistent on my goal and rework the goal as I'm doing it. And I think that for me, once I was able to stop comparing myself, then I actually was able to thrive further and faster.
Oh, I love that. Oh, wow. There was a question in the chat, Dr. Peter from Wyman, if you could tee that up for us.
Absolutely. Got some questions flowing in for Frank and Misty coming in from YouTube Live. And this is a great question. I'm going to get it teed off first for Frank, but Wyman says great partners operate on the same frequency and vibration level of excellence. What was the first indication that you two were operating on a similar or common frequency that produces phenomenal outcomes? Is there a story that maybe you all, Frank, that you remember that you knew, okay, yeah, we're kind of syncing up very, very well here? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think once I agreed to be Misty's accountability partner, we set up like our first meeting and we're having a discussion, and the connection point was the same pain point. We understood we had the same pain, of which the pain was we came into the speaking industry, and there were some people who were making, if you want to say, either critical comments, not directly to us, but about people like us, of which we were parents. And there's people who were talking about the sacrifices we need to make. And we both said, well, no, family first. So if you've got a sick child or a game to go to, she's taking care of her mother right now. I've got some alien in-laws. There's points when we meet and like, okay, here's our plan for the week, but the family, situation may throw it off. And it was nice to have somebody who I could connect with that way, because I had too many people going like, well, if you want to survive in this business, you got to make the sacrifice and do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, if I do X, Y, and Z, I won't have a family because I'm doing this to support my family. So when I can talk to Misty and she goes, man, I got the same feeling. Here's what I've heard. That was our first connection, was that pain point connection of, wait, I got somebody right now who understands there is a life outside of business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely, Frank. I'll piggyback on that. And in that realm, I knew that we were great accountability partners. The moment came where it was time to show up for a Friday, and I just vented. And I think that moment of vulnerability, because that's the key. When you can find somebody that you can be vulnerable with, and you can say, you know what, Frank, I didn't hit this goal, but here are some other goals I met or whatever. But being vulnerable really helps you take the mask off. So, because in this world, we show up as other people sometimes, in that space of accountability, that should be the one space where, you can have your bonnet on and your pajamas and say, hey, this is me, this is who I am, and this is where I am. But having a safe space to say, you know what, I do want this speaking opportunity, but I'm really scared. And Frank helped me, do packages and come up with different ways of figuring out what my client needs as versus what do I offer, and come to a place where I could always get my value out of any opportunity that I take.
And then when you see Misty do that, then you go back and you're like, wait, if she's doing it, I'm not doing it. So that's the iron sharpens iron, because, she can be like, okay, I'm a single mom. I got 2 kids. I'm taking care of my mom here. I got these different businesses. And I show up to the accountability meeting and she's like, okay, Frank, I'm having a great week. I did X, Y, and Z. I'm like, I didn't even do X. So then now I'm motivated for our next meeting to come back and tell her. And I said, it's not a competition. But once again, it's like, okay, if she's at this high level and she's agreed to be my accountability partner, then I got to bring myself up that same, high level, because once again, when I talk about letting somebody down, it's just like, okay, well, if she's putting her full effort in, I better show up putting my full effort in too.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Talking about full effort, I'd like to go to Misty for a moment, because we've been talking about our children, and we also have what we call an International Mastermind Association. Really, it is created, back in the 80s to be an accountability for mastermind groups. And so we're going to share just a little information about our annual meeting that we host, because when I listen to Frank and Misty both talk about the family, it's just another area that we do mastermind in. And like I shared when we opened the podcast, I personally mastermind with a group of children. You see Misty's eyes brighten. I personally mastermind with a group of children every Sunday from 1:30 to about 2:15, depending upon how many children we get each Sunday. And I can say that Misty's 2 children are my star pupils, if you will, my star masterminders, because they are, especially her son, and I have to give you kudos again, Misty. His growth has been phenomenal, and you've met him, Frank, so he has just become, I think he's becoming, I can even hear his voice changing, if you will, into that. So we're going to just share with all of you our information about the International Mastermind Association annual meeting, which we host every year. And it is held this coming year, January 3rd and 4th, 2025 in Boca Raton. But I'd like to have Misty just share one of the reasons why she has come and continues to not just come, but also to bring her children.
Yes, thank you so much. And I must lead with this. Thursday, the children receive their progress reports. And as Frank mentioned, we have sons that love to do what they want to do. But Miss Ann, I know you'll love this. Thursday, with my son's progress report, he received 5 A's, 1 B, and 2 C's. And I know that being a part of your International Masterminders youth program has just helped him excel. And to your point, every week hearing him read from Think and Grow Rich, and it's funny you said about his voice, because it's literally and figuratively his voice is starting to change, but the confidence that he has gained, he never would want to read out loud. But on Sundays, he has his books. Sometimes he's the first person on, and he loves to get right into Think and Grow Rich and read about the principles. So they meet every week. They set their own financial goals. And my daughter, when she first started, her goal was 500. She's like, I'm doing 1,000 next time. And what I love about this group is because kids change more rapidly than we do. So every 6 months, every few months, these kids are growing and thriving and becoming preteens and teenagers, but it gives them something to reach for every week, even in a school setting. If they're not so, enthusiastic about it, in IMA, they're like, yeah, I want to reach my goal. I understand that with these principles, I can reach this monetary amount. Money comes to me continuously, and having their affirmations. So I encourage anybody, number one, make sure you sign up for the annual meeting in January in Boca Raton. We have a blast. We come from Chicago. We've already got our plane tickets. We already got our tickets to the actual event, to the actual meeting, and the kids love it. I love it. And it's just the time to be with like-minded individuals who want to see you prosper. And Miss Ann puts on a presentation with the children each year. And I was in tears last January because the growth that my son has made, over those next 12 months. And it's a marker for you, right? You can say, okay, this 2023, they're here. 2022, they're here. So in 2025, I can't wait to see what my son does at the presentation at the annual meeting.
And how old is your son now?
He's 10 now.
And that means that he's been here 5 years with us. And
so he was 5. And if you see the video from back then to now, you're like, is that the same kid? But it takes a village. So thank you, Miss Ann.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So we just encourage all of you to go to International Masterminders with an S.com, and you can register there. If you go to International Masterminders with an S.com, you can register there. So I want to go back to Dr. Peter James, and as we begin to land this plane, we just took off. Frank, my goodness. Frank and Misty, I tell everybody, you are the ideal duo mastermind group that has been birthed out of the National Speakers Association. And I'd like to have Frank, before we start landing the plane, I'd like to have Frank talk just a little bit about this new responsibility he has inside of NSA in terms of this certification for speakers, because I think it is so very important. Every platform I'm on, I really want to tout and shout the benefits of the National Speakers Association. And so having you here, Frank.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, yep. So yeah, the new role that I took on is I am the vice chair for the Certified Speaking Professional Committee, which means next year I will be the chair. And Certified Speaking Professional is the highest earned designation you can get in the professional speaking industry. And this all sprung out of the $1 million mastermind, in the sense that I met several CSP speakers, and what they challenged me was like, hey, this is something you should go for. And the reason to go for it wasn't necessarily to earn the CSP, but was the fact of the CSP recognizes that they look at a 5 to 10 year window of your business. And in that 5 to 10 years, you've made at least $50,000 or more in your business. You've spoken for 250 paid speeches. You've taken an ethics course. They've reviewed your business plan, and they have Hall of Fame and other CSP speakers look at your work and your excellence on stage. So it's not something that's just given because of the time you have in the industry. A lot of people don't get it their first year. So I went through the process. I was encouraged by Misty to, go through. She was one of the first people to celebrate when I got it, and I got it through the first year. But when you're in a mastermind, you're taught not to keep your mouth shut. So during my process, I had another speaker who was going through with me, and I didn't like the way, quote, he was evaluated. So I spoke up and said, hey, here's a better way for the process. And when you do that, they invite you to come and volunteer. So I became a member of the committee, and now I'm the vice chair, and like I said, then I'll end up taking it over. And the beauty of the certification is we understand, especially for business owners, is most businesses, if you can last more than 3 years, you're doing good. So to be successful at the speaking business for 5 years or more, I mean, that's something to shoot for. But the other part is they created it in 1980. And since 1980, less than 1,000 people have ever earned it, roughly about 900 speakers around the world. And today, because you don't get to keep it, you have to keep going back and have it recertified every 5 years. There's less than 400 who actually still have it. So for a person who wants to be a speaker, you join the National Speakers Association, you join Black NSA, you join the $1 million mastermind, but now you've got a big goal to shoot for. And when you can earn this, and which I'm there to help everybody earn it, so please let me know if you want to go earn your CSP, because I know Miss Ann, you're going for yours. What is the leverage of saying, hey, you know what? I'm one of 400 people in the world. I mean, there's a planet of 8 billion people, but to say I'm one of 400, imagine leveraging that for your business to talk to your clients, to go, you're working with one of 400 people in the world. Just a crazy level. So to be a part of that, and as I said, it all started with me joining the Black NSA Mastermind, because I joined the Mastermind before I joined NSA. So you can see where the steps in the process go. So the support of you, we've got Wyman here, Galen, then, you connect me with the world's greatest accountability partner, Misty. I mean, those little foundational steps have allowed me to build, quote, this masterpiece that people are seeing now.
Wow. And to develop a phenomenal brand on your name. That's another podcast for another day by itself. To really walk into that name. All right, Galen.
Yeah, oh my gosh, such an incredible conversation, another great show. And like I said, I've had the privilege of working with each of these guys individually as well as collectively. So my name is Galen Bingham. I'm the leadership strategist. You can find me all over the place. The most fun way to find me, though, is to go and check out my podcast, Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. And as a matter of fact, if you go back just 2 weeks, you'll find a deep dive conversation with this amazing mastermind group, Misty Campbell and Frank Kitchen CSP. I would encourage you to go to your favorite podcast platform and find Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. We're actually being nominated for some awards. So we've been doing this thing for a bit, and pretty excited that the world is starting to take notice. So check out the podcast, specifically the podcast episode with Frank Kitchen and Misty Campbell. You will absolutely get something from that conversation.
All right, as we are landing this plane, we're going to go to Misty to tell people, how they can connect with you, then Frank, and then Dr. James.
Thank you so much. You can find me on most social platforms with my radio name, which is Miss All Purpose, MSALLPURPOSE, or simply type in Misty D. Campbell. You can purchase my new book, Fearless Advocates. All you have to do is simply go to fearlessadvocates.com. Oh, I disappeared. That was funny. Thank you, Peter. You can go to fearlessadvocates.com. I help caregivers become better advocates for themselves and those that they love. And yeah, Instagram or Facebook is the easiest way to find me. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Frank.
Oh, I'm just pumping the book. I mean, when you're going to be an accountability partner, you got to be your accountability partner's hype man. So you got to get the book.
Yes.
Yeah. For me, just with the information we're sharing today, I've just got two things. One is I invite everybody to go visit frankkitchen.com. So everything on there is talking about what we can do to flip our mindset and cook up the results we want for our career, our business, our organization. So go to that website. Lots of videos, lots of information, and then. Thank you so much, Peter, for pulling it up. Wrote a new workbook this year. It's called Flip Your Mindset, 30 Activities to Fire Up Your Performance. So this is actually free right now. So if they go ahead and click either on the picture or that link, you'll actually get the download of that workbook. It's a 44-page workbook, but I give you activities on how to flip your mindset, of which the big one is how to go out and find that accountability partner or to build your taste testing team to surround yourself with the people who are going to help you truly cook up those tasty results that you hunger for. So that's what I'm inviting people to do, frankkitchen.com. or frankkitchen.com/flip_your mindset. And that's all for you.
Good stuff there. And I'll jump on in. And, first of all, phenomenal show. What a phenomenal mastermind group. I'm hoping that our audience could really glean a lot from the power of this duo. Napoleon Hill says in the book, the mastermind may be defined as coordination of knowledge and effort and a spirit of harmony between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose. And what we heard from today from Frank and Misty was just that, the ability to be able to come together in harmony, to challenge each other, to hold each other accountable to newer heights, to overcome challenges. We can do that by ourselves. It's so much better and stronger when we do it with someone else. And that's what we've witnessed today. So I'm excited for Frank and Misty as they continue to move forward, and excited that they are able to continue to do great things overall. Hey, folks, my name is Dr. Peter A. James. I am the high performance coach, helping you to get to your next level, also helping you to shift your mindset. You can find me on so many different social media platforms. LinkedIn is probably the best one, or you can even find me at this area website right here, the Own Your Career Challenge. If you go to shiftyourmindset.com/Own Your Career Challenge, you will find an opportunity to begin to get to your next level by surrounding yourself with not one, but two expert and authentic executive coaches, myself and Galen Bingham, who will take you down your path for just a small fee of $97. Own Your Career Challenge, folks. Shiftyourmindset.com/Own Your Career Challenge. Dive on in. This is the place to be. Ann McNeil, this has been a phenomenal show. I wish we didn't have to stop.
Well, I think anytime we say we have to have you back, Nye, our trusted assistant, tends to reach back and say, listen, we've got to have you back. I think as everyone is listening, you can see we've not began to scratch the surface of this subject. And we opened the podcast up talking about power. And if you really want to tap into your power, tap into the power of others, because remember, only iron can sharpen iron. Only iron can sharpen iron. And our desire every Saturday is to bring you a sharpened edge, if you will, in the face and space and place of masterminders or individuals who've read this book and can come on and share, and do come on and share their best practices of a particular principle. And today's principle was none other than the mastermind, which I think starts and ends it all. Like something that was shared in one of Napoleon Hill's book. He did an interview he was interviewing Andrew Carnegie. Napoleon Hill was interviewing Andrew Carnegie in this book entitled The Wisdom of Andrew Carnegie. And he asked Carnegie, he said, Mr. Carnegie, where does this principle, the mastermind, comes from? And Carnegie's response was, to me, he said, Jesus Christ was the first masterminder, and his disciples was the first mastermind group. And when you stop and think about iron sharpening iron, in the beginning of their story, we all saw them as a misfit, if you will. And sometimes in our mastermind groups, we can appear to be misfits. But if you just don't quit, I have to give kudos before I get off to my mastermind group, Palm Beach Life Planners. There's 6 of us. And we've been together now almost 20 years. And it's not been easy. Actually, it's been very rocky for many, many, many years. But because many of us just stayed the course and we continue to come together every Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, we right now, for the last few years, are at 100% participation, and that's with 2 of the individuals that are international travelers. And just like Misty said about her and Frank, you know what time it is, you just show up, regardless of whatever it is, wherever you are, you do the very best you can to show up. No, it's not always perfect. We're not perfect. But I am, yes, I am the master wealth builder, helping to build mastermind groups, but also helping to elevate you to go to another level in your business and or your life. And if you are really interested in starting a mastermind group and you really want to understand how to do that, you can get a copy of my book entitled How to Start and Run a Successful Mastermind Group, along with the workbook. But whatever you do, continue to connect with us. And if you're interested in connecting with me, you can text the number 59925. And that number again is 59925. And you can put the word "and" in the chat. And we will follow up with you and see how we can help elevate you to the next level. I want to say a big thank you to Misty, a big thank you to Frank, and a big thank you to the National Speakers Association for creating a space and a place for all of us to grow to whatever level we desire to grow in, and whatever committee, whether it's Women of Power or Black NSA, Mastermind, whatever it is inside this organization. And if any of you who are listening are interested in taking, like Frank said, you can just be a business owner, whatever it is. If you're interested in connecting, please join us with the National Speakers Association. And you can find that by going to the National Speakers Association website, just by Googling the word. But until next time, Frank, Misty, thank you so very much. Galen, Peter, we'll see you on the next podcast. And I will say greetings also from Key West, which is where I'm hailing from today. Misty, thinking of you from being all over the world. But everybody, will see you next Saturday. All right, have a great day. And remember to continue to think and grow richer. And we'll see you next time.